eyes are on the Israel-Gaza peace talks. Negotiations in Cairo between Hamas, Israel and the US aim to finalize a US proposed ceasefire deal, but the process faces major obstacles as Israeli attacks continue despite calls for a halt in violence. US President Donald Trump has warned that Hamas will face complete obliteration if it refuses to cede control of Gaza. He confirmed that Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is on board to end the bombing, even as hardline coalition members continue to push for military action. Meanwhile, Israel has not extended the initial ceasefire after Hamas rejected a proposal to release additional hostages. Hostilities resumed following Hamas's refusal to agree to the US ceasefire extension plan. An Israeli government spokesperson said that there is no formal ceasefire, only temporary pauses in some attacks. Negotiators are set to leave for Cairo tonight to begin the technical stage of the talks, with Israel prioritizing the return of all 48 hostages.
Development comes with talks that will be taking place in Egypt as the Prime Minister instructed the team led by Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer to finalize the technical details of the release of the hostages, a priority and first step of this deal. Now, the team will be leaving tonight with plans for talks to begin tomorrow. And I want to reiterate, these are technical talks. Israel's government has agreed to the first phase of this deal, which is the release of all 48 hostages at once. As President Trump confirmed, it has been agreed to. Hamas, the terror organization, will need to release our hostages. Israel's team of negotiators will be meeting in Egypt to iron out these very specific details on the first phase right now. While certain bombings have actually stopped inside of the Gaza Strip, there's no ceasefire in place at this point in time, although there has been this temporary halt in certain bombings. The Prime Minister has given orders actually for defense to fire back for defensive purposes, of course, if there is a threat to their life in the battlefield in Gaza.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio warned that the war in Gaza is far from over, calling the release of hostages the first phase of a broader plan. He stressed that nothing is guaranteed, describing the success of the talks as a 50-50 chance.
This is the closest we've come to getting all of the hostages released, every single one, all 48, including the 28 who are deceased, of course, the 20 that are still alive. But, you know, there's a lot of pitfalls along the way. There's some work to be done here. We understand that we have to get the teams like the Red Cross or whoever it is that's going to be that goes in and gets it. All these things have to be worked out, and that shouldn't take that long. All those talks are occurring even as I speak to you now. We're hoping it'll be finalized very quickly, early this week. And I'm hoping, you know, again, who knows the timeline, but this cannot take weeks or even multiple days. We want to see this happen very fast. If it doesn't, then I think the entire deal becomes imperiled. So this has to happen quickly for the sake of the hostages, the families, and this deal.
On the ground, the situation remains dire. Israeli airstrikes and tank attacks killed at least 16 people on Sunday, while Gazans continue to desperately seek an end to the bombing amidst a worsening humanitarian crisis. The conflict remains tense and fragile, with hostage releases, military withdrawals, and diplomatic negotiations all critical to determining whether Gaza sees a lasting end to the violence.
I want to thank the countries that helped me put this together: Qatar, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Jordan, and so many others. So many people fought so hard. This is a big day. We'll see how it all turns out. We have to get the final word down in concrete. Very importantly, I look forward to having the hostages come home to their parents and having Some of the hostages, unfortunately, you know the condition they're in, come home likewise to their parents because their parents wanted them just as much as though that young man or young woman were alive. So I just want to let you know that this is a very special day, maybe unprecedented in many ways. It is unprecedented, but thank you all, and thank you all to those great countries that helped. We were given a tremendous amount of help. Everybody was unified in wanting this war to end and seeing peace in the Middle East, and we're very close to achieving that. Thank you all, and everybody will be treated fairly.
Now we have Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, defense and geopolitical expert, and Ambassador Deepak Vora, former Indian diplomat, and Itai Melchior, non-resident senior fellow, N7 Initiative, the Atlantic Council, joining us live from Israel. Thank you, all of you, for taking time out to be with us. Itai, let me quickly begin with you. Itai Melchior, what are your thoughts at this stage? U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has said that these talks in Cairo have just about a 50-50 chance.
Yes, it depends if you want to be optimistic or pessimistic. He also said that 90% of the details have been finalized. So in the end, it's the last 10%. We've seen, as expected, Hamas didn't say yes to the Trump proposal. They said yes, but. And the buts are very big. One of the main issues that was supposed to happen is the Hamas laying down its weapons and not being part of the new leadership of the Gaza Strip. That is the best thing for the Gazans and for the region, but Hamas has already said they refuse to that. They also claim they don't know where some of the hostages are. They want Israel to withdraw more than Trump said they will. So there are a lot of details still to be ironed out, but a lot of pressure on Hamas, and we actually see a quite unprecedented coalition of Arab countries coming out with a statement, very strong statement, supporting the deal. And I think that this is one of the reasons that Hamas really understands that it's been cornered. We also see very harsh rhetoric coming from Trump and from Rubio saying that if Hamas refuses, they're going to give Israel a green light to go ahead, and very harsh statements there. So I really think that we are going to see Hamas very flexible. We just have to see how flexible they are, and also if there aren't any tears between what is called Hamas, the out Hamas and the in Hamas, the leadership in Qatar, which is receiving a lot of pressure, and the leadership inside the Gaza Strip, who is the one holding the hostages, who's maybe more feeling in a mood of martyrdom, and therefore may not cooperate fully. That said, we've heard also from other Palestinian fractions that are holding some of the hostages that they have agreed to the deal in essence, especially since for them, Hamas being dismantled is actually good for them because that means that their organization can become stronger. So we have to wait and see what happens in Cairo in the next couple of days.
Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, you know, as far as the number of people involved, number of parties involved in bringing about this peace deal, yes, it's driven by the U.S. now. It's fundamentally driven by the 20-point peace plan by U.S. President Donald Trump and his administration. But now it is being hosted in Cairo. There was Doha involved over here as well. How successful do you think that, you know, hosting these talks in Egypt and with the, you know, the kind of response given by the Arab countries are going to be for that final peace deal to be sealed?
Thank you, Krish, and good evening to fellow panelists. First and foremost, let's put it, talks in Egypt. Now, talks in Egypt positively, what the peace plan is all about. Should that peace plan have all those 20 points implemented? Impossible, it seems, as at the very outset, because what has come to light is that the Hamas has accepted just about 7 odd points. So going to Egypt with, well, of course, there is a lot to be seen into it. But if Hamas is not to get disarmed, not willing to give up Gaza, then the entire thing just collapses. Because why else did Israel go to war with Hamas in Gaza? They've had not, this is not the, hopefully, Israel may be thinking this is the last and final confrontation and there will be peace hereafter. 2009, 2012, 2014, 2021, and now this for the last 2 years. At such a fearful thing in it, over 65,000 people are dead, Entire Gaza is almost flattened out. You have over 170,000 people injured. You have almost 90% people displaced. And if after all this, if there has to be a ceasefire with Hamas in control of Gaza, then the entire peacetime will not go. Look at what's happened in southern Lebanon. 41 countries are there as part of the UNIFIL. 41 countries, 10,500 people, 500 women. You know what's happening between the Blue River, the Blue Line and the Litani River. Despite all that, the southern Lebanon still, you find Hezbollah over there, still Israel has to take action. So with this as a background, until and unless Hamas gives up Gaza, Hamas in any case has to be disarmed, but there has to be no way. You cannot hand over power back to Hamas or their proxies in Gaza. Then what use is it? Wasting so much of, I would say that it's just been a wasteful expenditure and loss of human life. What face do we have to show to the world? Nothing. So therefore, it's very essential that Hamas is not to be a part of this entire plan. Hamas has to be disarmed. Gaza has to be demilitarized. And the idea in some form, maybe an international transitional force or something like that for the time being. But if nothing of it, it is back to Hamas. I don't think there can be a peace plan as I can see it. Yeah.
Ambassador Deepak Vora, at the end of the day, Hamas is asking for a complete withdrawal, which Israel is already, yet to agree with. Forget about, Hamas agreeing to all of it. Even Israel is not able to keep up with all the 20 points in the plan.
Well, thank you very much. Always a pleasure to be with you on your channel. And thank you for pulling me out of my late evening swim when I got your call. And to my colleague from Israel, please don't do anything between 2000 and 2100 hours IST every evening. That's when I swim. So please tell your people not to pound Gaza at that time. Now, sir, we've just heard General Saab and my colleague from Tel Aviv. By the way, Pizza Khan Le Israel is my blessing to you. May Israel win. My heart is with you. One of the things that we are trained in diplomacy is to try and understand the motivation of the protagonists. What do they want? Israel will never accept Hamas in Gaza to avoid another October 2023. There's no doubt about that. America wants, particularly President Trump, wants to take over the Gaza Strip. He's talked many times about having a Riviera there and so on and so forth. And Hamas will have nothing to do there. At most, 1 square kilometer of some kind of gated community will be built there, and the poor chaps the Palestinians will live there, not more, not less. What about Hamas trying to put up a brave face to redeem its credibility among Palestinians? And the Palestinians, sir, 52 years in diplomacy and counting, 74 years young. Who cares for the Palestinians? You think these jokers who are saying, we'll host the talks, we'll host the talks. What talks? Talks about what? Mediation about what? Qatar will pay for everybody to fly there and talk about it. They have a lot of money. They've learned their lesson. They got thrashed by Israel. Talk about what? And personally, I do not believe, this is my opinion, and from my WhatsApp group, which we've now replaced with the Indian RTI. People, my friends who are ambassadors, diplomats, and military officials, journalists, they say it is highly unlikely, and I say this very slowly, highly unlikely there are any hostages still alive in Hamas custody. If that happens, sir, and it's proved that there are none, take it from me. Hamas, what is happening to it now will be like a picnic compared to what will happen to it later, sir, because they've been lying right through.
Itai Melchior, tell us 48 hostages are left with Hamas. And in fact, we are having this conversation at a time when there has been a refusal from Hamas to release the rest of the hostages and a resumption of hostilities by Israel.
Which is clear, they haven't anything to release. And Israel has made it very clear. No hostages, no stopping of the bombing. Period. We are keeping to our pledge. We'll bomb you out of existence. We'll obliterate you. And so personally, I think by obliterating this terrorist organization, Israel is doing the world a favor.
Right. Itai, go ahead.
Yes, certainly. So there are presumed 20 of the hostages alive. According to intel, according to others, we've seen some video footage that has been released by Hamas of some of them recently, not in a good shape. We know that they've been tortured and mishandled in a way that no entity that has been holding hostages or prisoners of war has behaved. But many of them, at least 28, are already known and confirmed dead. There have been funerals for body remains for them. But we are hoping to get all of them back. Now, this is an essential condition, and this is stage one in the 20-point plan. It was the immediate release within 72 hours before Israel even withdraws from the first point. Now, Hamas says they don't know exactly. They need to look. They want Israel to stop overflying so Israel doesn't see where they are going to take the hostages from, etc. And this is something maybe Israel can live with. But I think that since Trump was so exact in his words about this, this is going to be something that has to be held. It has to happen, and the hostages have to be released within 72 hours. Israel is holding its breath. It's an issue that every Israeli has been praying for 2 years now, and this is the right time to end it all. That said, there is opposition internally looking at the entire situation, saying we cannot let Hamas live another day. That is part of the 20-day plan, a 20-point plan by Trump, but we've already heard Hamas refusing to those points, and therefore we'll have to see how those things are in the end decided and what negotiation can bring. Again, Hamas is under extreme pressure. They've been offered safe passage, but I doubt that we will see all of the Hamas fighters agreeing to lay down arms, and therefore they may even end up with the internal conflict in Hamas and maybe fractions of Hamas breaking away. And terrorist organizations do love this, making more and more splinters and breaking off into sub-fractions. So there's a lot to look out for, and even the best expert cannot really predict how this will pan out.
Very difficult to predict how this will pan out because, Lieutenant General Kulkarni, even when Hamas accepted to that peace plan, there have been key omissions, key conditions. As Itai Melchior said, we agreed to it, but there was a big but at the end of it, and that includes, terms and conditions for even the releasing of prisoners, which is the topmost priority for Israel at this stage. And, any loss of prisoners that is heavy, any loss of hostages that are heavy will mean that Israel could move in for the final kill.
Absolutely, Presh. Nobody knows better than Ambassador Deepak Vora. He is at it and he knows it very well. And let me tell you, under no circumstances, if Hamas was sincere enough, the first thing before 6 in the evening today, they ought to have at least handed over those dead hostages, if not the ones alive. At least the dead hostages should have been released, showing the intent that, yes, they wish to have peace, rather than allow Israel to the bombardment of Gaza and 17 more people dead. What use is all this? That means it appears that either what Ambassador Deepak Vora is saying, either they are not there or they have a problem, or there is something amiss in the entire thing. And then the first thing they ought to have done is to hand over at least the dead hostages. That would have shown the intent and probably things like ease. That hasn't happened. Secondly, the 20-point plan, there are so many ifs and buts. Any plan which has ifs and buts cannot succeed, because ifs and buts are all revolving around Hamas not wanting to give up Gaza, Hamas not wanting to get disarmed, that much that the peace plan has a blue line, the yellow line, and the gray line. Nothing will work. How will it work? Hamas should have been sincere. Hamas has not been sincere. Israel also should have stopped bombing, at least for a few hours. They did that. But again, they would have realized that nothing seems to work out. As I said, so many ceasefires, even during this 2 years of war, nothing really has worked the way it should have worked. All these confrontations, 2009, 2012, 2014, 2021, nothing has worked. And therefore, it's a final solution which Israel may be looking for. And that final solution is Gaza not with Hamas. Positive, Gaza not with Hamas. Hamas must be disarmed. They will not be there. Either Hamas or any of its proxies can't be there. And the entire Gaza has to be demilitarized. How and who takes care of it is subsequent. But if these conditions are not acceptable to Hamas, what else can you do? Qatar can put pressure on Hamas to accept what the President of the United States is saying. Mr. Trump is sincere. No doubt he's sincere. He wants peace. But how would that peace come? If it's 20-point plan, I'm sure even Israel may have been surprised by those plans and the things it is. Probably somewhere down the chain, Hamas, some pressure on Hamas, some pressure on Israel. But the first sincere, my personal reading would have been Hamas should have handed over if not at least the dead hostages before 6 in the evening today, giving the intent that they actually want even before the peace talks start tomorrow in Egypt. I think that hasn't happened. And therefore, I personally feel that too many ifs and buts, very difficult. It's not going to be easy. Probably whatever little area, 90% Gazans have been displaced. I think all of them will get displaced because you can't hand over the Gaza back to Hamas, again tunneling, again the whole thing happening all over again. It's not possible. I don't think. And again, you know what's happening in West Bank also, Krish. West Bank is also under pressure. You have Gaza under pressure, West Bank under pressure. It's a very, very difficult solution. Very difficult solution. And it's not going to be easy. Let's see. I hope and sincerely hope tomorrow something worthwhile comes out and there is peace.
Ambassador Deepak Vora, is it the end as we know it? Is it the end of the road? Is it the time for the final solution, as we call it, for Palestine, for Gaza? How much diplomatic room is even left at this stage?
On a scale of 1 to 10, the diplomatic space is minus 25. Nothing is left. It's game over. So I hesitate to use the term final solution because my Jewish colleague would understand what it means for a lot of Israelis, all those who suffered at shitty Adolf Hitler's extermination camps, and he talked of the final solution. But yes, Hamas cannot be allowed to stay in Gaza, sir. That particular day in October, sir, General Saab and our colleague from Israel, that particular day in October 2 years ago, we were all Jewish. I was Jewish that day. Oh, this must never happen again. I'm not interested in what was the background and who was bombing whom, etc. But this kind of brutality on women and children, no, must never happen again. No one has apologized for it. I've never seen Hamas saying, guys, we're very sorry, some stupid fellows in Hamas did this, and we have sent them to their 72 virgins or whoever they get in when they go to the Islamic paradise. No, sir. My own feelings are, diplomacy, as far as this is concerned, is dead. Now it's Donald Trump and Bibi Netanyahu who are going to decide. They've already decided. Together we'll run Gaza. Nobody wants the Palestinians. Please, Egypt, you have so much of land, take them. Please, Qatar, wherever. Nobody wants them. Jordan's example of 1970 still continues to haunt everybody. So I don't know what's going to happen. But, sir, my firm conviction that this is the end of the road for Hamas, sir.
The end of the road for Hamas. Itai Melchior, the next 24 to 48 hours will decide that, isn't it? We will know this in the next 24 to 48 hours.
Yeah, knowing Hamas and the way they like to pull out things, is going to be 48 hours and then another 24 hours. And it's not going to be over, sadly, so quickly, even though the Americans have set a deadline. Remember, Trump has a deadline of the Nobel Peace Prize announcement by the end of the week. But I seriously doubt that we are going to see that. I just want to say something about obliterating Hamas. You have to remember that Hamas is a movement. It's part of the Muslim Brotherhood, which is a spider web around the world, illegal in many Muslim countries, and sadly legal in many Western countries. Hamas also exists in the West Bank. The belief is that if there were free and fair elections in the West Bank today, then Hamas may win the elections there also, because the PLO is so corrupt. So therefore, Hamas is not going to be over, even if it gives up its arms in Gaza. That's one thing to remember. Second thing to remember is Netanyahu is facing political hardships inwards. Two of the more right-wing parties have already said that they will not be part of a government that allows Hamas to live on. The left and the center, who's been promising Netanyahu a safety net, will be happy to pull that net once those parties pull out. And on the other hand, Netanyahu has elections in any case within a year from now, and he would very much like to get to those elections with a deal in Gaza, with some kind of new regime, and hopefully with widening the Abraham Accords to Saudi Arabia and maybe some other countries. That is his ultimate goal, to reach those things before the elections, and therefore he will put all his weight down on the right-wing parties to go along with the deal that will be struck in the end if Hamas does go at least 80 or 90% of the way.
Ambassador Vora, will Hamas go 80 to 90% of the way?
Not even 5%, they can't. They owe it to the Islamic world to tell them that we are the warriors on the winged white horse and we are going to fight for Islam. Total arrant nonsense. They're not going. This is This was a dispute about property, about who owned that piece of real estate. Where does religion come into this? The kind of thing, screaming Allahu Akbar while slaughtering these people. I'm sorry, sir. This is something that I fail to understand. You're fighting over real estate. You're fighting over land. So fight over land. Why do you bring religion into it? I do not think Hamas is going to be permitted to survive. Not certainly in Gaza or in the West Bank or in any place close to Israel. They may go and settle down in Argentina or on the moon or the sun for whatever Donald Trump cares. He wants Gaza, sir. I've been there. It's a beautiful place. He's going to build a Riviera there, and they're going to make money. That's all that he's interested in. I'm sorry, it sounds cynical, but I prefer to be realistic rather than fantastical. I don't believe in fantasy. I'm old enough to realize this is not going to work. So I've seen it. This peace plan was stillborn, dead even before the ink was dry.
Fair enough. We will leave it at that. Ambassador Deepak Vora, Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, and Itai Melchior, thank you so much for taking time out to be with us here.